Part two, we're going to look at a whole set of other trends here. One of them is consumerization. The other is games and gamification. And by gamification, we mean how we're finding ways to inject games into daily activities, things that we take for granted, make games out of them, and therefore engage users more and more. And of course, social media. This session will be moderated by the most excellent Zaid Nasser from Mediascope. Zaid Nasser, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Just grab my seat, thank you.
Grab your seat.
And you're going to introduce everyone else?
Let me introduce our panelists. First of all, we have Ali Sabkar, President of Social Media Club MENA. We have Jane Coulthard, Social and Digital Media Consultant, AP Direct and Brand Aura. Mark Hillary, the CEO of IT Decisions, and Michelle Athagana, Managing Editor of Memburn. Is that correct? Memeburn. Memes. Memes like the Harlem Shake. We'll pack this room and then we'll do a Harlem Shake tomorrow to close
Okay,
things
let's
up.
welcome them all on stage.
Please welcome our panelists.
Okay. So, because we're the last panel before lunch, and I think the program kind of went in a way, you can sit to my left if you want. It seems that we're going to be asked to do 35 minutes, right? But just about? 40. So we're going to change the format a little bit so that we can accommodate that. Anyway, welcome my esteemed panelists. Thank you for those who came and flew from outside. All of you, actually. You're all visiting Jordan.
Yes.
Welcome. I hope you're enjoying your time at the Dead Sea. All right. Now, I'm not going to have the time to talk about each one of them. I wanted to introduce them properly because this is a very esteemed panel. But I'll just quickly just do like a two-liner on each of you, if I may. Michelle is from South Africa.
Yes.
And she's in the publishing business, but in the digital publishing business.
Yes.
And she's big on social media and social publishing and various trends. Mark is well known. He's a British author and blogger, and he's one of the well-known theorists on some of the trends we're talking about today. He's based in Sao Paulo. That must be interesting and entertaining, I'm sure. And he's in the IT. He used to be in the IT field. Ali is well known here in the region. He's a social media guru, and he's the president of the Arab Social Media Club and the Bahrain version of it. Also, he's also from an IT and background and a marketing background. And he runs eHulul, which is a website of opinion leaders on social media. And Tal Majkouli is also a very he's a very well-rounded character, let's say that, because he's a filmmaker. Some of his films have been in major festivals. He's also an ex-finance and IT guy, right? Did I get the finance one right? That's right. And he now, with his co-founder who you met this morning, has launched democracy.com, which is an interesting also experiment of how to basically socially connect voters with candidates. So it's an interesting group, and frankly, when Intaj gave me these three big mega trends, I was worried that we were like the second part of a panel, and I wanted to make sure that we'd have a chance to talk about most of them. So I'm just going to mesh them all together because we only have like half an hour. So there's consumerization, there's gamification, and there's social media, which I'm going to rename social platforms, so that we can have a discussion about that. Now, just for everybody's information, consumerization means that consumers are driving business. It just means that some of the best technologies start in the consumer space, and then organizations find themselves that they have to adopt it, and that crosses with the next one, which is gamification. Gamification is when gaming is used by organizations to achieve business goals, like telling your salespeople to score a point by getting a sale, and everybody wants to collect points, and therefore everybody collects sales, and the objectives are achieved. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. My panelists will delve into that. And then you've got the social media platforms, which is social collaboration for the enterprise also. So everything you want to talk about is regarding the enterprise, because we have an audience here of CIOs and IT managers who are interested in the impact of these trends on the enterprise. So I'm going to let each one of our panelists delve into their choice of, or maybe like a mix of them. You can talk about consumerization and gamification and social platforms and how it's all coming together if you have some numbers, some facts, or some examples you would like to discuss. And then we'll move on later on to advising people. So tell us about some of the amazing things we're seeing now across the world in consumerization, gamification, and social platforms in the workplace.
Okay. Good. It's on.
It's on, and I think everyone can hear you.
Oopsie.
I'm going to turn on my off.
Okay, so one of the really key important things is that with consumerization, everyone is looking at like the new trend, but it actually isn't, because at the end of the day, businesses are always meeting their customers at the point of their needs. And what's really important in the day of technology is that now they actually know what their consumers want, and they're meeting them in those platforms and understanding what their needs are. A great example of consumerization, I think, will be Evernote. I don't know if you guys use Evernote.
Evernote.
Yeah, so Evernote began as a consumer app, simple free app for users to kind of collect their thoughts, remember everything, and now it's moving into the enterprise space. And it's launched in about 14 countries currently, and the business world is starting to understand the need for platforms like that. Whereas their employees were using mandated productivity apps, now they understand, wait, they actually enjoy using Evernote, so let's bring that into the enterprise space, into the workspace, so they can use it.
You make an interesting point,
yeah.
that the enterprise software is boring maybe compared to what's available in the consumer space. So bring the consumer style platform into the enterprise.
Yeah, I think one of the speakers from before also mentioned the whole idea of bring your own device. It's pretty much the same thing, where you say to your employees, okay, we will give you these devices to use. And they say, actually, no, we have this device and it works so much better, so just allow me to use it on your network in a safer, better way. So, and the same thing happens with Twitter and Facebook. It might not be, I mean, a lot of, when Facebook and Twitter first launched, a lot of companies began banning them. They weren't active because people weren't being productive, they weren't doing their work. But for big corporates and big brands, they realized, wait a second, they need to understand social. If they don't understand social, they don't understand the consumers. And it's important to do that. And they started to research and investigate ways they can meet their consumers that way. And some of the biggest brands that are online have their users actually going to talk to social media experts. And this is something that happens to me a lot. I get emailed from a brand that says to me, okay, talk to our guys. How can we make this work for us? How can we do social media? And I say that you have to do social media by doing social media. You go onto the platform, you see what people are saying, understand the language. And from anyone who works on social media, the language is very different. It's not the same as corporate speak or brand speak. It's incredibly different. It's much more human, if you must. And these brands are starting to understand the need to do all this, the need to participate in this space, and that's how consumerization is growing more and more.
And that obviously has an effect on the way they plan their IT.
Yes, definitely.
Their internal IT and their marketing, and who's responsible for what.
Yes, indeed. They begin to put it in strategies. So you have companies like McDonald's, who have one of the biggest brands online, Starbucks. They have well-documented social media strategies and plans in terms of their technology strategy and their marketing strategy. It's a huge play in terms of marketing strategies.
Lovely, lovely. And Mark, would you like to add to that? And you can also delve into the other aspects of gamification if you want, or consumerization with numbers if you like.
Sure. I saw an advert in an old archive newspaper last week. It was from 1970, and it was the Times, the British newspaper, for IBM. And it showed the latest IBM computer in 1970. And this was the size of a room. And when I looked at the memory it had available, it was less than one song on my iPhone. So the progress is astounding. But this still kind of summarizes enterprise technology and how we see it today. Old-fashioned, not changing very quickly, this kind of thing. It's the comparison between your Office PC and your iPad, or why when you go to the office, they're still running Office 2008 as the enterprise software, for example.
When everybody now is using stuff like Google Apps, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So rapidly updated and constantly changing and customizable equipment. And I think that the App Store, it sort of summarizes that entire environment, the idea that you can take a platform and then just constantly change and upgrade it yourself. The British government has actually sort of taken some of this on board and created a G Cloud, the government cloud, which is a kind of app store within the government. So obviously it's a massive organization with many, many departments, but clearly there's parts within the government that are used over and over again. So they are kind of trying to go around the other way and take the way that consumers...
They're trying to control it a bit.
Well, they're trying to take the way that consumers behave using an app store and then bring that into a large organization.
That's a learning. They're taking a learning from the consumer space into the government or, let's say, corporate space.
Yeah. But I would say that, I mean, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier around the government strategy and the forward-thinking plans, I would say we can't really plan for innovation. You can plan and create the right conditions for enterprise and conditions for innovation, but certainly it's the consumers that will lead this, and it will come from the bottom. And to give you an example that leads into the gamification story, you might know about crowdsourcing as a strategy where an organization or an individual who needs some money to fund something, whether it's a book or a show or something, will then just go out to the internet. They'll describe what they want to do and then ask people to contribute small amounts. So it's become a popular way to get things like books funded.
You're talking about Kickstarter.com.
Yeah, so Kickstarter is a classic example. Yeah. In Brazil, where I live now, it's actually become very popular to do this with rock concerts now. So instead of waiting for your favorite artist to book a tour and come to where you live, the fans are now actually crowdsourcing. They're generating the funds that will meet the artist fee and the theatre fee and everything that's required to put on the show, and then getting the artist to come. And the sort of gamification of this is that the people who originally put money in and say, we want to get this artist, even though there's no gig booked, the artist hasn't even agreed it yet, we don't know the date of the show, but these people, as original backers, will get free tickets and VIP access to the shows. So it's becoming a big trend, and there's more and more artists working that way in South America.
It's incentivized, isn't it? It turns the event management business upside down. And people in the event management field have to pay attention to that. And if you're in IT or tech in event management or in MICE industries, this is a major thing that you need to be looking at. Don't you think? So, Ali, what do you think of that? I mean, this is interesting because something that also Michelle and Mark kind of touched on was that workers are also home users who are happier with what they see on their social platforms, maybe possibly at home. And the new worker of the 21st century is a Facebook generation, smartphone carrying, game playing person. So like, it's a triumvirate of disaster for a workplace if they don't adopt it, don't you think?
Yes, we had.
Did you turn on your microphone? It should go green.
Okay.
Get it closer to you, like so.
It's okay. Thanks. Facebook had a conference last month in Dubai, and they announced that the average age user of the global-wise is 27 years old. So imagine those billion users that we have, their age, the average age is 27. So they are adults. So imagine those billion users that we have, their age, the average age is 27. So they are adults.
They're all working.
They are working. And they are the possible entrepreneurs as well. In MENA region, we have more than 60 million users in the social networks. Mm-hmm. Okay, between Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, and others. And Instagram is booming as well for the home businesses, especially in the Gulf. Whoever wants to do any home business, they started from an Instagram. So those workers, or let's say the ambassadors of the brand, because the staff are ambassadors. They are always ambassadors of your brand. So if you provide the right strategy for them, to utilize those social tools, they can be as well, your brand ambassadors on the community.
You mean, for example, supplying them with apps that they can carry around instead of having to log into the server at the office?
Exactly.
Download these apps. What about the security aspects that come with this? I mean, can you watch the conversation with the client or with the vendor through these devices?
I'm not with watching them and what they do, okay, you can always find it
But
out.
IT people, they like to watch.
Yeah,
they like to measure. IT and
Marketers
CIOs,
don't like.
they want to measure everything.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
worried what's happening, you know.
Yeah, we need to trust the ambassadors. So you need to trust them, and you need to test them. So you can always test, units by units, and start, giving them the space. It is very good as well that always you have engagements from the ambassadors on behalf of the company. When you talk on Twitter engagement or Facebook,
They represent the brand.
They represent the brand, and this represents the community as well. So the earlier sessions, they talked about if you want to open a business in Saudi, go live in Saudi. This is not the right way to do it. Today you have them, you have all the tools. So imagine those 1,600 social networks worldwide that are available. Every social network has tools.
Yes.
So utilize the tools, utilize the monitoring system, utilize all those hot suits or social bakers applications, or this monitoring. Even Facebook today, they provide a detailed demography and detailed, like how many images uploaded and from which platforms, from which handsets and smartphones. It's crazy. The information that they have is huge.
How can you pulling that information into like a management report or into like a meeting setting where where you can actually put objectives and decide on the business future? Is it reliable data, you think? The data in the social sphere, is it reliable?
I think it's reliable.
Even if it's crowdsourcing sounds like something very democratic
At the end,
and reliable.
it came from the source itself. So today, those social networks don't depend on other monitoring systems. It's actually they are competing with other reports.
They're replacing the systems within the organization.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting, Ali. Telmash, before we move on to you, I just want everyone to know that you can jump in at any stage and add to the conversation, because it is a very connected conversation. So,
sure.
Telmash, what do you think of what you've been hearing, and what particularly have you experienced in this field? And maybe you want to talk about the political side of things a little bit and how it relates to IT.
Well, I think one of the most important things I'm hearing up here, and that I've seen, of course, is that companies no longer control their brand, and that really consumers are defining brands now. And I think there's a fundamental implication in that no longer can you put a lot of money behind a TV campaign and a print campaign and billboards, and that's how people perceive your brand. Now people go on Yelp or on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, and they hear from their friends how their friends experience these brands. And so there's a lot more validity coming out of that. And really what the implication for that, I think, is profound in the sense that product quality and value proposition to the customer, in a sense, are now more important than ever, because the customers are using your brand and then talking about it. Now, what's fascinating in the election and politics space, which is where democracy.com operates, is, what we've seen in the last couple elections is that, say in 2008 in the primary, when Hillary Clinton was 27 points ahead of Barack Obama going into the Iowa caucus, in 3 weeks, Barack Obama raised $60 million online and had millions of grassroots followers who were giving $20 a person, something unheard of before, and he came from behind to basically prove that the customer liked his product better. And we saw the results of that.
Yeah. He massively benefited from like a crisscross of technologies like commerce, where you can actually pay on the internet, and social media, where he created the buzz, and people who are passionate about something and who are using their devices and the internet, and they basically pushed him. If he was a brand in many ways, wasn't he, Barack Obama, in that respect?
Absolutely. And also it's really important to notice that companies are behind these. Companies are providing the infrastructure. It's Twitter,
Yes.
Facebook, Google.
Corporations,
democracy,
with
yes.
salaries and executives and IT departments and everything.
And serving the consumer's ability to connect with other consumers. And I think that's really just a phenomenally important thing to understand.
Can I just
Yeah,
quickly
please jump
jump
in.
in there? Just the idea, and this is something I keep hearing, and everyone is convinced that because we live in such a social platformed world right now, and that information and sending out information is literally a second away from your mobile device, that because of that, consumers have lost control of their brands. Personally, I think consumers never had control of their brands, because we're before the day of social media where I could share stuff. If I had a bad experience with a brand, I could tell my friends about it, and they would
Yeah, word
have
of
a
mouth.
negative.
Word of
and
mouth
that
just
word
went
of mouth
online.
is still the most powerful tool available to any marketing strategy, and they will decide to have a negative opinion of that brand. Now, if I say it on social media, that brand now has the opportunity to actually rectify that. So personally, I think now they have a little bit of control. They still have very little control. They have a little bit of control because they can help guide the conversation now. They can help change opinion based on what people say. And I had a really bad experience with an airline once, and they contacted me, tried to fix it, upgraded my ticket, and I changed my mind. And because I changed my mind, my Twitter followers changed their minds.
You're still a customer.
I'm still a customer. I'll still use them. So I think with social and technologies like this, they need to start taking more control, because now is the opportunity to be able to take control of those brands.
And you think the workers in that company, they had to be empowered to be able to communicate with you?
Exactly.
I mean, it has to be like an open system company where anybody can talk to you, who can answer that question.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have like not just a customer relationship management system. You know, a lot of companies, they have a CRM where you have to sit at your desk and log in, and you have to go through Web 1.0 steps. You know, there's this saying. Nobody really likes big words, but people are calling it Enterprise 2.0.
Yeah.
Like where you use proper social media inspired tools for your enterprise, and where you use proper devices. So what you're saying is that companies should be more open systems. They should be more open to handle that customer problem, for example.
No, definitely. I think currently the region that's doing really well in terms of customer.
Our region, you mean the MENA region?
I'm sorry, it's not. Actually, South America is really
well,
great
okay.
at customer relations
Yeah,
online.
South Africa. Well, we want to learn from the best.
I think their response rate is about a couple of hours. Generally, some people, most brands give you about 24 hours to a couple, 48 hours to respond. But they have, I think, between an hour and 4 hours response rate. And the speed is important, especially online. It's great to respond to people online. There are banks that are communicating with people immediately. You have a problem at the bank, you're in a queue, and it's moving very slowly. You tweet the bank, they get back to you immediately, and they direct your queries to the right people. And they need to have the right people working social media. You cannot hire
and the right
agency.
infrastructure.
Yes, you cannot hire a social media agency to run your social media,
That's
especially when you're a big brand or bank. Because they need to know what to do in a situation.
Michelle makes an interesting point and demonstrates that there should be an infrastructure in place to do that, like infrastructure and a team. You have any comments on that, Mark? I mean, what you have to put in place, what kind of philosophy and culture you need to put in place in a company, and how everybody has to come on board. Finance has to come on board to buy that or finance that infrastructure. IT has to come on board to be able to supply it. And basically, what kind of culture is required within an enterprise for this?
I think, there's a changing culture at work, and I think that clearly the main driving part of the organization where we're seeing that is customer service. But these tools are changing everybody's life in many other ways, and I think that's everybody who works for a company is also a consumer, and we're seeing a blending of those roles, because you might be a consumer of Coca-Cola and you're interacting with their Facebook campaign, but you may be a manager that's commissioning projects on a B2B basis, but you're still influenced in some way in why you make those decisions. So, I think with about 1 in 7 minutes online at the moment is on Facebook, out of all online time. So clearly interacting on social networks is a great deal of the total time that people are spending online. But I think that it's not just changing the way that customer service is changing, because I've had similar experiences. Like I've complained about an airline, I complained about my broadband not working, and then within minutes the telecoms company contacted me.
Somebody was ready to answer. Somebody was waiting for you.
It was, in fact, I found it was easier to complain through Twitter and then get them to come to me.
The message got through.
Yeah, than the old style customer service of ringing a helpline and then proceeding through some kind of robot system, an IVR.
But then you were rerouted to a helpline, possibly. I mean, maybe through Twitter they knew you had a problem, then somebody from the customer service center called you, or didn't they? So it is connected somehow.
Oh yeah. I mean, they are now becoming, most large organizations are now becoming intelligent enough to connect this together: the online chat, the call center, the social media interaction. But I think that where organizations will take that further and become even smarter is blurring the boundaries of the organization itself and going into things like co-creation, working with customers, using customers as your R&D department. There's companies like Lego, the toy company. They get all their ideas for new products from the customers.
Wonderful.
So essentially they've just opened up to the world and said, well, you guys are our biggest fans. You tell us what you want us to do in future. So I think you'll start seeing it move. It won't just be that we've moved away from the call center, but it will be just the entire blurring of the organization itself.
And the co-creation, there's a lot of data coming in, isn't it, Ali? A lot of data coming into an organization from many sources, sifting through it or deciding what works and what doesn't. Maybe there has to be a big team in the company to handle that, don't you think?
The research team, the analyzers, you have to have a business analyst as well. You need to analyze all this information and channel it to the right unit. I believe that the buy-in has to come from the higher management. If you have the perfect CEO who believes in the social media, I have realized in the region, the CEO who has, a Twitter account or a Facebook account, you will see that he has a perfect platform within his company. I experienced it with 2 telecoms in the region, and they have, the most engagements channels with the audience. So, and then cascaded to other units. If we go to the gamifications about the gaming and
gamification, for example.
For examples, so the simplest thing you can do is adapt the Foursquare board leaders gaming. So when you check in, you get points.
Like a leaderboard of who's on top, who's number 1, who's number 10.
So basically, it will work for a telecom. I tried it in Bahrain. It works fantastic
really?
For the workers, not for the customers.
A gamification example from Bahrain. Let's hear that.
Okay, so we have like 150 employees in the shops, in the retails, in the telecom. And we tell them, when you go and start up, your day, so please check in. So instead of you have the normal check-in or there's
the online check-in.
So there is an online Foursquare check-in, and who gets write tips. You can write tips about your check-in.
Reviews.
You can review about a product, because see, those retails have targets to sell. So you can write a review about a product you want to sell today. And then we start rewarding the best reviews. We can reward the best guys, gets points, and the best person who gets comments from his friends. So he started adding.
You're rewarding the customer.
It's a free tool available, which is Foursquare.com. Just adapt it to your workers, and from the workers, it automatically will go to the fans and followers, and you will create a buzz about the brand itself, because it's connected to other platforms.
This is an example of how gamifying your goals achieves. You get the data you need.
This is for sales,
and you do customer service, and gamification can achieve multiple objectives. Before I move on to Telmesh, there's another example. Microsoft, what they did with Windows 7, this was a long time ago. They experimented with gamification. They had a problem. They wanted to roll out Windows 7 in 14 languages. And they translated it, I think, in Redmond, back in the US, and they wanted to do like a crowdsourced solution to fix it. So they went to all their offices and all their employees across the world and told them to read all the menus and all the dialog boxes and everything, just to make sure that the employees find it before the customer finds something wrong in his or her own language. So they got hundreds of thousands of responses from their own staff, and they fixed it accordingly. So, and they created an incentive system where the more mistakes you caught, the more points you would get rewarded through some. So I don't know if they give them money. I don't think so, but maybe they give them some kind of company incentive. So you can gamify things. Gamification is interesting in that respect, and using consumer technologies. Any other comment on that, Telmesh?
Yeah, well, this was really put on display in the last election with Barack Obama. Again, his efforts. Used to be if you were, you gave $10 million to the party, you could probably get dinner with Barack and Michelle. In this last election, you could give $5 and have a chance to have dinner with Barack.
Well, that's a massive, that's again, usually things get inflated, not deflated, the pricing.
Yeah. Well, what was inflated, though, was that actually they raised more money by getting more millions of people to give a small amount of money. It's the whole insight of
it's like the long tail, the whole long tail idea that millions of people are better than one big customer.
Yeah, and the gamification really plays into the long tail to add an extra incentive to engage users down the tail. And in politics, we're seeing that happen. It starts at the top. Really, this is in politics. Politics is very slow to adopt the internet. But it started with insurgents, really. Like Barack Obama was an insurgent candidate. But we're now seeing this really start to drop through to mainstream candidates, and both in the consumerization and in the gamification of the way candidates do business.
Wonderful. So clearly everything is pointing in this direction, isn't it?
Completely. I mean, just also on politics, an example from Africa, it's Nigeria.
Huge country with a big population.
Exactly.
The mobile penetration is amazing in Nigeria.
Absolutely
If you want to
insane.
do anything in Nigeria, you have to do it through mobile. So mobile is a consumer product.
Exactly. And their president was dubbed by CNN the Facebook president because of the way he used social media, learning from Barack Obama's example during the election. And I think Barack Obama has taught a lot of people about, leveraging that kind of technology. And what he did was every day he would say something on Facebook about the country, issues in the country, and ask the people to tell him how to solve it, which I think it's how many he's actually solved with people's opinion.
How many assistants did he need to go through all these responses?
But the truth is they were responding, and Nigeria's youth are going online to talk to him, to tell him what their problems are. They're giving him proposals on fixing things. And rumor has it is actually getting people to work for the state via social media, which is really, really impressive. And I think that's something that for this region actually is quite important. Is
because of all the Arab Spring.
Because of the Arab Spring.
Yeah, Facebook changed the governments in the Middle East. Well, I mean, I don't wanna go on record saying that. I just want to say that social media facilitated change in the Middle East.
Well, but yes, I mean, where you have people in more developed worlds, for lack of a better term, where they're using social media for recreational and, lack of a better word, against shallow purposes. You have the young in this region using social media as a weapon of change. Yes. And that's something really impressive and something that brands and government can really look into and tap into using, and that also can be gamified.
And they change the way companies think, not just the way governments
exactly.
think. And governments have to be able to read, to listen. They have to be able to listen
Very
and adopt this, crunch all this information and come out with a result.
Yeah.
It looks like Mark has an opinion on this, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that I think we shouldn't forget that it's been very easy to use the web now for almost 20 years. Since about 94 when Netscape came out. So
yeah, we were there.
and there
Most
are
of us were, right?
many of us here who remember that happening. And I think but it's significant that it is now a couple of decades because it means that there's young adults who've graduated, they've got degrees, they're out at work, but they've got no memory of any time at all before being able to use the internet. And that affects both politics and the expectation on political leaders. If you look at what happened in Italy this week, where a comedian ended up with more votes than any other candidate, rather than any traditional politician.
Did you win? Was he announced as a winner?
Yeah, well, it's a bit difficult
because the vote,
in
Italy, always Italian politics is always like that.
They have to create a coalition or something. But you're seeing that change in not only politics, but also the enterprise and work environment as well. So I think that's an important point to remember.
It's interesting, Mark, because you're talking about digital natives. People, they call us digital immigrants because we immigrated to technology. I mean, the first time I saw a mobile phone, I was in my early 20s. So we're like a little bit behind compared to these digital natives. And these people, they're coming into the workforce in mass. In the Arab world, in the MENA region, because we're a young region, there are going to be millions of people coming into the workforce who are very connected and tuned into, social media platforms and games and the like. And maybe you won't be able to motivate your next, the next 10 years of staff unless you give them like a proper social style incentive. There's something called P2P. They call it person to person.
Yeah.
You should stop doing business to business or business to consumer. It's person to person now because a customer is a person and an employee is a person. We're just people talking to one another about products. How many of you talk to their customers using WhatsApp? I mean, WhatsApp is not an enterprise official form of communication, but you're talking to your customer using BBM or WhatsApp, and organizations need to pay attention to that. You know that, just one last comment, 30% of our time is spent on email when we have a computer in front of us, and this is today's work. But in reality, they're expecting that 30% of time will be on collaboration software instead. Instead of email, it'll be something like Yammer or Google Apps or some kind of messaging system, or maybe an API on LinkedIn, or we don't know what that's going to be specifically. Talmaj, you have a comment before I go back to Michelle? Talmaj or Ali?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Ali, you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I got some reports from Facebook last week about how many people in Bahrain used Facebook messaging. So people starting, using that.
Replacing
and
emails.
Replacing emails.
Yes.
50 million emails in 1 month. It is Bahrain, which we have only 400,000 Facebook
So
users.
50
So
million
imagine other countries with.
Massive.
It's huge.
50 million, it can't all be personal. It must some of it must be business.
Exactly. Especially now, they allow that you can email them through outside the Facebook emails.
Yes.
And you can do attachments. This works perfectly when you are in a hotel, by the way, that when you can't use your webmails or you can't use the Outlook,
can't log into the enterprise
you can go
server.
to the Facebook and send what emails you want.
So that changes. That means that IT has to pay attention to that. I mean, if we're going to send our messages through Facebook, what's going to happen to the email address? You know, the @ something that they give you on your card when you're hired in a new job. Maybe there should be like another kind of address on the Facebook fan page or on the Twitter channel. I don't know. Quick comment, Mark, on that? No? Sorry, Michelle was the one.
Sorry. I mean, as someone who is a digital native,
You are? Okay.
I remember Netscape though, so I do.
All right. But you do remember
My
Netscape.
first email address was a Netscape.
All right. We need to define digital native by years, but I'm not going to talk to you about age on stage now.
No,
So
no,
it's
no.
just, we'll talk about this later.
I've never known a world other than the online world. I found a way to get not 1 but 3 degrees out of it because it was just easy to sit on a computer every day and work with
Online
it.
degrees.
No. I just got my degrees based on online technology.
I see.
So,
I see.
now, I manage every single person I've had in the last 2 years. I don't think anyone's older than 23. And a couple of weeks ago, we hired a guy who really wanted to get into journalism business, and he's 40. And he called me a few days ago to talk about something. And I said to him, why didn't you just WhatsApp me this?
Yes.
And he was like, oh, I just wanted to get you from my guest, but it's quicker if you WhatsApp me than sitting on the
Because
phone.
if you've been working in a certain way for 15 years, it's
Exactly.
difficult to change.
We become
but
so
change can happen, though.
Change could happen, but as someone who's always all over the place, I was in San Francisco a couple days ago, and now I'm in Jordan. We've created a virtual newsroom where we can talk about today's stories and breaking stories on WhatsApp, and we can all get it wherever we are. Some of my staff work from coffee shops because they find they focus better there. So it's definitely with the younger generation that's going to be working in 10 years' time, these are the technologies that needs to be used for them. And email, it's a huge problem, actually. I found it a real problem. 12 hours on a plane and I have 100 new emails.
How are you going to go through all them one at a time?
Exactly. And you need to put attention to them, especially as a journalist, because you don't know what's important until you've actually read it.
I've looked at Mimi Burn, your website, and it's part of a bigger group of sites. And clearly, it's a collaboration style product where people are contributing their stories from all over and
All over the world,
so are consumers. So you're applying collaboration in your business.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big part of what we do.
And also, Mark, as a blogger and as a writer, is experiencing that himself also.
I should get him to write for us.
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
Well, I'm based in Sao Paulo. I'm British, and
He's written books. You've written various books. Are they available online?
We need his opinion at eHalul then.
Okay. Yes.
But I work for corporate clients all over the world: France, UK, US, Ukraine. So, and it's all of these tools. That
Could
allow
not be
that.
possible in the past.
No.
Working for all these
No.
clients in different parts of the world.
I think what Keith was saying in one of the talks earlier, where he mentioned because of these tools and because of the global collaboration, you can have a small team, you can launch a new company globally, you can do that instantly. I mean, this couldn't happen. I launched a research business in Brazil just after I arrived in the country, and it was essentially just by going on LinkedIn and finding who's the top 100 IT purchasers in the country, connecting them together into into a research club, and now I'm selling that to a big IT company. But it's essentially something that was me sitting on my couch and using LinkedIn. So it was the information and the connections that became
that
valuable.
empowered you.
Yeah. And I think it's a whole new paradigm. It's fast. You can find a team using tools like LinkedIn. So if you're searching for the skills, you can use a tool like that. If you just want to send the work out there and let the skills, the people come to it.
Platforms like elance.com.
Yeah, Elance, Odesk, any of those kind of tools. So
wherever there's a need, there's a community rising to meet it, or there's a social platform that's rising to meet it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I needed a logo for my company, and
It's blurred.
I just put the job out there, and someone from Mexico.
It blurs the line between a freelancer and the proper company, or blurs the line between a consumer who turns into a provider and a provider who becomes a consumer. It's just very blurred now. Interesting. So because we're wrapping up now, I think they said that I had to wrap up 10 minutes to 3. So
I
I have
got-
like 3-4 minutes.
I got-
We have 3-4 minutes.
I got a question about, video blogging. So
Question.
I don't know, Mark, are you using any videos for your blog?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So video blogging is become now famous, especially in our region where people don't want to read, they want just
People
to watch.
prefer to watch, and
To watch.
half the traffic,
So
half the internet traffic in
Twitter
Saudi
launched
Arabia.
Vine application when you can, simply have your video. Kick, like high kickers and others.
K-I-K?
Okay, K-I-K. No, the key, double E-K. Okay, it's very new social networks. Still, it's not for business, but it's more for personal. And they are huge, massive, it's on mobile, so it's very easy to use. You have Vimeo, you have YouTubes, you can, you have all those type of applications that you can use it. Especially you can use it at the work. You can have a competition for your company and ask the fans and followers to say anything,
Record
just your
themselves.
opinion, record it and upload it in the same time through the mobile. It's easy like that.
Mark was talking about collecting your data, your next product development from the customer
From the
themselves.
customers.
It's interesting. So now we moved into the advice stage, like the final advice stage of Tamaj, any comment or suggestion related to this matter?
Well, I think that what's fascinating is they're catching on to a huge trend, and again, I think politics is always fascinating because it's always the last one to adopt these things. But if you see the use of video in the last election in the States,
Massive.
It was massive. And some was a lot of it consumer generated. I think everybody's heard of the Obama girl from 2008. But these have made actual huge differences in the outcome of the contest. And so we see that media now is being created by the consumer in many different forms, video being kind of the newest one because it's become so much more accessible and
But it's gobbling up
affordable.
broadband, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have broadband. So this is just another trend to see that consumers reaching out to consumers, becoming players within a power dynamic in which they didn't used to have the same role through these tools is the macro trend that's really changing the industry that I work in, and I assume the industry that these guys are all working.
And all these industries, they have to join the revolution, or they'll be crushed by it.
Yeah.
Basically. So I mean, I think I'm going to wrap up, and just want to wrap up by saying that, all these people coming into the workforce, they're expecting all of this, and the panel here today, part of the idea was to discuss, to enlighten us all regarding what we need to think of for our IT decision making and our management decision making, considering all of these trends. So that wraps up the panel for consumerization, gamification, and social media. I want to thank my panelists, Michelle Atagana, Mark Hillary, Ali Sabkar, and Tal Mashkouri. Let's all give them a hand. And I want to thank the heroes who stuck around in the room until until lunchtime. Okay, there should be a gamification system to give you all points. Thank you very much. Okay, lunchtime, everyone. Lunchtime.
So, Zaid, thank you very much for a very well-moderated session, and thank you to your panelists. Great conversation. Guys, listen up. So we are going to break for lunch now in the interest of time. We're going to shuffle things around so that we can catch up on our program. Right after lunch, we will move straight into our breakout sessions. Nothing has been canceled. We have a keynote speech later this afternoon. But right after lunch, we will move into our breakout sessions in the respective rooms. So please check your booklets to know where you're going and which session you're attending. So we'll have 2 sessions, and then we'll all meet back here by 5:30. We'll meet back here in the main plenary hall to close out our program for the day with a keynote speech and then the final session for the day. And we will have caught up. Have a good lunch.